So let's understand dynamic data type. You can store any type of value in the dynamic data type variable. Type checking for these types of variables takes place at runtime instead of compile time. So generally type checking happens at compile time only, but in case of dynamic variables, it would be done at runtime. So this is the syntax to declare a dynamic type variable. So you just have to mention dynamic keyword, after that variable name and the value which you want to assign to that particular variable. So let's discuss key features of dynamics in C#. So the first one is late binding. The dynamic type defers type checking until runtime. This means the compiler doesn't check whether the members, that is nothing but the methods and properties you access on a dynamic object, actually exist at compile time or not. So for dynamic variables, if we are calling any methods or properties from that particular object, even those not available at compile time, it will not throw any exception. If method or property is invoked on a dynamic type that doesn't exist at runtime, then it will throw an exception, runtime binder exception. So the next one is interoperability. Dynamic is particularly useful when working with COM objects like Office Interop or dynamic languages such as Python or JavaScript, where method signatures and types are not known until runtime. So to communicate with these languages like Python and JavaScript, where the types are not known, in that case, you have to use dynamic data type. It simplifies calling methods from dynamic libraries where strict compile time type checking is not possible. Implicit conversion. You can assign any type of value to dynamic variable and it can be changed types at runtime. So here in first line, we have declared one variable value of which is of type dynamic. So we are assigning, initially we are assigning integer value, that is 10. So initially it is an int. After that, we are assigning string value to it. So now it holds a string value. And after that, we are assigning Boolean value to it. So now it holds a Boolean. So dynamic data type can hold any type of value. So let's understand use cases of dynamics in C#. Interoperating with COM objects, interacting with components like Microsoft Office, where you don't have strongly typed APIs. So in that case, you have to use dynamic data type. The next one is interacting with dynamic languages. Dynamic can simplify calling code written in dynamic languages like Python or JavaScript from C#. So when you want to communicate or consume the functions from dynamic languages like Python or JavaScript, in that case, you have to use dynamic data type. So what is the downside of dynamic? Performance overhead. Since dynamic requires runtime type resolution, there is some performance overhead compared to static typing. Increased risk of exceptions. So as we discussed, at compile time, compiler will not check whether that method or properties exist or not for that particular object. So in that case, there is an increase of risk of exceptions. If you try to access non-existing members or perform invalid operations, you will encounter runtime binder exception at runtime, leading to potentially unstable code if not carefully managed. So let's understand dynamic data type with the help of this program. So here we have declared one class program in which static void main method is there. So in first line, we have declared one dynamic type variable z and we are assigning integer value, that is nothing but the 10. After that, in next line, we are assigning string value to z variable and after that Boolean value respectively. So it will not throw any exception over here at compile time as well as at runtime. So let's build the application. So yes, build is succeeded. So after that, one more variable we have declared, which is of type dynamic, and we are assigning a string value to it. And here we are calling the length property of string class. So as we are assigning string to object variable, so length property is available in string class. So that's why it will not throw any exception and it will simply print the length of the variable. So here the length of the variable is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it will print 5 over here. But after that, we are assigning integer value to same variable. And again, we are trying to call length property of that particular variable. But at compile time, it will not throw exception, but at runtime, it will. So let's debug this program. So the final value of z is true because at the first line, the value was 10. Let's debug it again. So here, value of z is 10. After that, value of z is hello. And after that, the final value of z is true. So same variable can contain different data in case of dynamic data type. After that, we are declaring one more variable obj, which is of type dynamic, and initially it contains string value. So here length property is available for that particular string class. So as we are aware, string class contains the length property. So it will print the length of the string to the console. So yes, 5 is printed. After that, we are assigning integer type value to same variable. And now we are trying to access length property of that particular object. So it will throw a exception. So yes, it's throwing the exception. That is nothing but the runtime binder exception. Int does not contain a definition for length property.